welcome everybody to the second episode of the Tough Love podcast. I just wanted to give a quick thank you to everybody that watched, that liked, subscribed. I honestly did not expect that much traction from it. I really, really do appreciate all the feedback as well. I am very much new to this. I created this just to kind of help and try and help at least as many people as I can and just kind of get different perspectives. And I thought it was a great idea to just get people together and help. That's the most important thing. So thank you again so much for the people that are watching, subscribed, and liking. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate all the feedback. And there something's going well because I actually managed to get a second guest. So please give a short brief of yourself because I want people to also get to know the person, because the breakup is the breakup because that's where we're all there, but there's more to the person than the breakup. So I would love for you to just kind of whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with saying about yourself, and just kind of give a explanation as to how you found the subreddit.
Okay, hello, my name is Chris. I am 37 and in the UK. I'm currently just under 3 months post-breakup and have been in no contact with my ex since. I was the dumpee. So basically, long story short, had a pretty good first half of a 3-year relationship. And due to outside influences, deaths in the family, losing my career because of COVID, you name it, it kind of hit me at all angles at the same time. I did the usual bloke thing of withdrawing inside myself and shutting people out because trauma and all that kind of stuff. And, with a relationship, it's the last thing you should do, really. And she felt more and more pushed away until she decided that enough was enough. And, that was that, really. I'm new to this myself, so I will probably go into more as we go more into the more questions and all that kind of stuff.
Right, of course. I mean, right off the bat, I can relate to you. I think it's like, yeah, it is a very much a guy thing. I think maybe this is a thing that happens, or obviously it happens to women, but I feel like with men, we do have a lot of unresolved trauma that we may just carry on and just kind of bottle up and never really get to the bottom of it. And because I was the same exact way, I would let things from the past kind of bother me and just say, I'm fine, it's okay, just move on from it. And then it would bottle up, and then I would get to a point where it would feel like I would just push that person away, and then they would say like, well, what's wrong in this? And then it would just be so many things that I didn't want to talk about because I was just either too embarrassed or just didn't want to talk about it, didn't think it was such a big deal. Where, yeah, it does feel like you're just pushing them back. And obviously, because of the circumstances, even now with the pandemic, it's made it can make things a lot worse. So it just you're just kind of there trying to help yourself, but at the same time trying to put as much time and effort into a relationship where it just feels like it kind of crumbles apart after a certain time because you just have this unresolved trauma.
Yeah, I mean, hugely so. One of the things that I can actually credit the relationship for, or I actually should say the breakdown, is there is nothing more motivating than the pain of a breakup to change something if you are the person that has been dumped.
Yeah.
And so the 3 months that I have obviously been kind of wounded and dealing with all this kind of stuff, I've thrown myself into self-growth and, trying to get to the bottom of these traumas, not just for my partner and, in a guise to try to get them back, but also for myself, because anybody who's been dumped can recognize how painful a process it is, especially if you've been with somebody for 3 years, like I was with my partner, and you have that connection with somebody and then that connection is severed. That's a hugely traumatic experience. And if you've got these sort of attachment issues and the attachment trauma from childhood as well, it brings all of that right back to the surface, and you're not dealing with just the breakup of the relationship, but also every other trauma and every other attachment that you had severed throughout your life. So it just becomes this double, triple, quadruple whammy, and you're left reeling. So, I agree with you 100% in the sense of that guys typically don't talk about their feelings. And I think that's largely down to not having the emotional language too.
Right.
It's very difficult to ascribe how you're feeling sometimes. Like some people say they're feeling sad when they're actually not, you know,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
variance of sad. You know, there's sorrow, there's grief, there's unhappiness, and these are all covered in a blanket statement that we don't really know how to express. And because we don't know how to express, we get frustrated at ourselves. And then because we get frustrated at ourselves, we tend to shy away from anything like that. So it's just the typical kind of guy thing of, I'm not going to deal with it. It's not an issue. I'll just put a lid on it, shove it in the corner, and just forget that box exists.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% true. And I think the a big issue that people like this may have is that or the person that you're in a relationship with, they we probably get into this get it in our heads that, okay, maybe if we're with somebody that loves us, we're in a happy relationship, that they're going to help us and that they're going to take all this trauma away and that they're the
Uh-huh.
ones that they're going to fix everything, when that's really not the case. You kind of have to help. You really do have to help yourself. There's your nobody is inside your brain. Your brain is your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy. It knows all your insecurities. It knows everything about you, and you really do have to get to the bottom of it by yourself. You can't really rely on somebody. I understand that having somebody that loves you and all this stuff, it's great, it's amazing. I know that they can help you in so many ways, but ultimately you have to realize these things for yourself, and you really can't depend on somebody else to do it for you. And I think many times that we just get into a relationship with all this baggage and unresolved trauma and just kind of hope for the best of like, okay, well, as long as I have my partner and I have my relationship and I'm happy, everything else is just going to magically go away, when that's not really the case.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a dangerous mindset to be in as well, because if you place your happiness in the hands of somebody else, then that happiness can be taken away.
Yeah. Oh, very true.
Inevitably, if your partner leaves, or if there are any issues and your partner becomes abusive, or whatever, there are a million and one different things that could go wrong when you put your happiness in somebody else. And I mean, I'm one of these kind of guys that likes these snappy little sayings and stuff. And there's one that I like, and
Right.
it's wherever you go, there you'll be. And
Yeah, very true.
basically, it means that no matter where you are in the world, no matter who you're with, no matter what you're doing, you are going to be the one person that will always be the constant in your life. You
Yeah.
know, we occupy this space in our own minds, in our own heads, because that's pretty much who we're going to be for the rest of our lives. And that person is there when you're having a great time. That person is there through the sorrow, and that person is there at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep. So it really pays to put the effort into kind of getting to know that person and to understanding that person, because I think a lot of the issue that comes with breakups especially is not so much just the lack of communication, but lack of communication with yourself. What are your wants? What are your needs? What do you want from a relationship? What makes you happy? And if you
Yeah.
can't answer that, then how can you expect your partner to answer that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big theme that probably goes on the subreddit, and I said this in the last episode, that I think a lot of dumpies turn very bitter and very they just
Yeah.
don't see the bright side in things, because I mean, understandably so. You have this great relationship, especially if you're blindsided, you don't expect these things to happen, but a lot of the times it's you should have seen it coming, but you don't, because you're so blinded by so many other things that it may have been. I'm not trying to say that the dumpy's at fault. Like, sometimes nobody's really at fault. It's just so many things happen, so many unresolved traumas are there, that the breakup should be about, the number one thing that I will always say is that when besides obviously the circumstances of you got cheated on, all these, manipulative, all abusive, all these things, obviously that's completely different. But if you're in a relationship that just ended, you should really try to look internally first. You should really try to look at, okay, what happened here? What did I do? What was what were the things that I didn't resolve about myself? And then you kind of look inwards and then the breakup should be about realizing things. I didn't realize so many things until after I was dumped. I realized so many things about myself that I needed to fix, that I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything with my life. I need to fix these things. But it's ironic, because being in the relationship, you're so happy, and then being out of it, you realize how actually unhappy you were with so many things that were going on. So you have to look internally first. Look at what you could do better, and just become the better version of yourself each day, each week, each month, and just look at that first, and then try to fall in love with yourself again, learn about yourself again, and then that will definitely, like, far succeed over going into a next relationship, because you'll be using this time to heal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to drop any names because obviously endorsements and stuff like that. But there is a relationship coach that is quite prolific on the internet and is mentioned quite a few times
Right.
on the subreddit as well. And one of the things that he says is that a breakup is a symptom of an underlying issue. People don't break up unless there's been cheating, unless there's been monkey branching, or unless you're with a narcissist or anything like that.
Right.
Invariably, when people break up with you, it's because there is a reason.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes, in our pain, people do lack that introspection. And I see it all the time as well, where people, not only are they bitter, but about being broken up with, they're bitter towards their ex as well. And this is a person
Yeah.
who, up until that breakup, they were so about, so in love with. And all of a sudden, because this breakup has happened, they flip the script and then accuse this person of being X, Y, and Z. And the
Yeah.
reality of it is as well, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, it's not an easy job for the dumper either. They're
Yeah.
going through stuff. I learned secondhand through my ex's family that she was having a real hard time with the breakup, but at the same time, it took her months to get to the point where she felt like she had to break up, because there was a big issue with lack of communication and lack of prioritizing.
Yeah.
I slipped into
100%.
depression. Yeah, I slipped into depression, and then as a result of that, I was focusing on self-soothing myself. I built cars as a hobby, and I just threw myself into those. I was not
Awesome.
working at the time because of COVID, so 8 hours a day I was in the garage. And
Hmm.
my partner was living with me for the first part of the lockdown for a good couple of months, and she was working from home, and we'd see each other in the evenings. And she ended up spending more time with my housemate than me. And
Right.
I didn't realize at the time, but obviously looking back on it, because I was in such a state of depression and anxiety because of so many outside traumas and stuff going on, I was just doing whatever I could to stay above water. I was self-soothing by keeping myself in a familiar environment, by doing stuff that I know that I'm good at, so I don't have to worry if I'm going to mess it up. And
Right.
it's hindsight's 2020. It's easy to look
Yeah.
back and go, yeah, I wish I knew what I knew now, because things would be different. But the reality of it is, what a lot of people don't realize is that it took the breakup in order for them to have that shift in focus.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that had my partner not broken up with me, we'd still be in a relationship that was lacking. She'd still be unhappy, and I'd still be resorting to my old kind of methods to try to get me through the day, simply because I didn't know how to communicate those needs to my partner.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree, and I think that that definitely goes on. There's this huge thing where like it's completely understandable that somebody would be angry. Like I went through that. I still go through that. There's still phases where I'm like, oh yeah, like I was dumped. I'm really upset. I'm really angry about that. I have this pent up anger towards that person, but it's really like it's you go from lovers to strangers in one day, and that can really, it does take a toll. I get it, but the thing with that is that you're still giving them power to get to you. Like, that person, like you said, that person was your best friend, was your lover. You probably thought, like, people were thinking like, I want to get married to this person, I want to have children with them, and now that they're gone, they kind of look outward, and it does mess them up psychologically, I think, even more, when the issue is that, yeah, they may have been a lot of lack of communication and all these things, and you may have been blindsided. Like for me, I was blindsided, but like you said, hindsight is 2020. Looking back, and it took me a while to look back because I was so bitter at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. And then you look back and then you see the flags right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I look back
Yeah.
and I was thinking, oh wait, I think I was a big reason why that breakup happened because of the way that I was being. And it may not have been 100% all me, but but I took a part into that too. Like a relationship is a two-way street. It's with two people. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so it I understand the frustration and the bitterness and all these things, but I think you also have to look back and you have to kind of just stop and be like, okay, well, let me look at this in a bigger spectrum and just not wish the worst
Right.
on my ex, because a lot of the times there's just so many different circumstances where you may have been at fault as well.
I think a lot of that comes down to ego as well. And I don't
Yeah.
mean ego as in egotistical. Ego is in, I mean, ego gets a bad rap, but ego is what gives us our self-worth. It's what gives us our place in the world. It's what
Yeah.
gives us our sense of self.
Yeah, I agree.
And when we get broken up with, it's a huge kidney shot to the ego, and then you're kind of left reeling, especially if you're blindsided, and then automatically your brain goes into making it about yourself. What did I go? What did I do? Where did I go wrong? What could I have done? And it's basically your brain's way of trying to regain control of a situation where you have no control because you've just been left by somebody else. And all of a sudden you're now kind of like, well, where did I go wrong? If I'd done this in the relationship differently, or if I'd done that, then it would have been different. And it's a kind of a roundabout way of your subconscious trying to regain control over a situation that it has no control over, because we try to make it about us in a roundabout way. And
Yeah.
it can be very tricky because, as we said before, a relationship, people don't just wake up one day and go, you know what, I'm done. This is it. I'm going to break up with my boyfriend, or I'm going to break up with my girlfriend today. It's
Yeah.
something that's been coming for a while. I'll be brutally honest. There were actually moments a few months prior with a relationship where I was struggling and I was kind of sitting with myself and I'm thinking, and you kind of go
Yeah.
through that ruminating and you're like, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And you
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't actually know. It's like, do I want to break up with this person? The reality of it being is that yes, you do, but because you're so sort of wrapped up in your own issues and wrapped up in the immediate and what's going on right now, you kind of forget about the future and what's going on in the background. It's kind of like having these programs on your computer where you've got the immediate ones which are open, and then you've got all the tabs in the background which just kind of like doing their thing.
Yeah.
But it's so important to to be present. There were so many times where I would just get so far ahead of myself, or just be reminiscing in the past way too much because of what was going on. And
Yeah.
they say that I don't know how much you can vibe to this, but anxiety is usually you worrying about the future too much, whereas depression is being caught up in the past too much.
Yeah.
So by being present, you kind of
100%.
get to control of those.
Yeah, and that's something that I always try to say. Like my biggest issue, the thing that I realized being in a relationship, or actually from the breakup, is that I was either too worried about the future or too stuck in the past. I wasn't living in the now. So because I was
Yeah.
so depressed about my insecurities about the past, um, things that I would talk about with my ex, but and then it would be resolved, quote unquote, but at the same time I still felt bitter and I still felt this about it, so it really wasn't ever solved. It was just kind of swept under the rug. And then because of that, I lived way too much in the past and also thinking about the future way too much, that I just completely didn't live in the present. So when that person wanted the affection and wanted the now, the things of now, I sometimes wasn't able to give that because I was either way too much in the future or thinking about way too much of the past. And that it took the breakup for me to see that. That's why I always try to say that a breakup is always a win-win situation for you. It should teach you a lot of things about yourself. It should teach you to better yourself. There's so many lessons in a breakup. It's not always all negative, which is, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff to it, but it's a very big lesson and it's a very big moment to learn a lot about yourself and resolve a lot of the things that maybe you didn't realize before. And also, it removes a person that probably wasn't meant for you. Not to say that they're not meant for you in the future. Maybe it could be the right person or the wrong time. But at this current moment, somewhere in the universe, that person was removed to be able to help yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the one who matters, you know?
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of the kind of things. So obviously, I did the usual thing of as soon as the breakup happened, on the internet straight away, how to get your ex back, all this kind of stuff,
Oh, yeah.
because
I
it
still
was one of
get
these
those
things.
recommendations.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there are a few of the people out there which are quite predatory. Um,
Mm.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to name names of people not to go to, but yeah, there are a few
No,
out
you
there
can go
with.
ahead.
So yeah, Coach Corey Wayne, Brad Brown, Dan Brown or whatever his name is, or Brad Browning. Those kind of guys. Just there's it's basically borders on toxic masculinity, in the sense of be the 3% man or be the one, and it's basically,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know. It preys on people as well. Subscribe to my $47 pack and I can get your ex back, kind of thing. And the problem
Yeah.
with that kind of mentality is, and this is one of the reasons why I do advocate, and I am a staunch believer in no contact. In the few weeks, few months after the breakup, we're in such a state of anxiety that any move you make, any kind of decision you make, is going to be a decision based on anxiety, which is based on fear. So it's not going to be your best person. It's not going to be the best face that you show. It's not going to be the best decisions you make, because they're decisions made on fear.
Yeah.
So this is why so many people who have a shot at getting their ex back kind of mess it up, simply because they're not working from a position of logic. And
Yeah, that's true.
the other thing as well is that by immediately getting into this kind of mentality of getting my ex back, it's almost like some sort of ownership thing, where this person stops becoming a person, stops becoming, this whole kind of addition to your life, and becomes an object of desire. And then, your brain kind of latches onto that. And, because of the connection that we get, and because of how it's like a drug withdrawal, when that connection is severed, you just become
Yeah,
so fixated on it, and it becomes so dangerous.
that's true.
You know,
Yeah.
um, but going back to your point earlier about losing people that will then kind of shake you out of this funk, I am one of those people that unfortunately learns lessons the hard way. But when I learn them well.
Right, right.
Um, so, losing the person who I was literally planning to spend the rest of my life with, and, was pretty much planning to propose to her in just over 2 months, just under 2 months, actually.
Right.
To have all that ripped away, it was a huge motivation for me to basically, I kind of sat down with myself and thought, well, I've lost the person that I was planning to spend the rest of my life with. I've lost the person that I love, and I've lost my best friend.
Right.
Make it count. Make
Yeah.
it count. Make it
Yeah,
mean
yeah, yeah.
something.
That's true.
And
That's very true.
there are so many people that kind of slip into the victim mentality of, they did this to me, they did that to me, and you know what? I get it. It hurts. It sucks. No, there is nothing good emotionally immediately after the breakup. You can't think there and go, oh well, that was actually a nice time. I wish them all the well. It would be great if we could, but it would take a better person than me to just go, yeah, you know what? We had a great 3 years. My time's over, and I wish her all the well going forward. But it's not how the brain works.
Yeah, that's very true. I think yeah, you get like immediately, and this happened to me, and it's funny because I'm known, even to my ex, I was known as a very logical, not emotional person, basically a typical man, where he
Yeah.
just like I just think logically, I don't do this, and even for me, I was like, okay, what can I say here to salvage this?
Yeah.
What can I
Yeah.
do? How can I?
How can I logic my way out of the situation?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like what do they say? They say never to make a choice, never make big choices when you're tired, hungry, and too emotional,
Yeah.
and when your emotions are so heightened that you just all you want to do, I completely understand it. All you want to do is just get this person back, trying to do this, trying to change their mind, trying to like no, 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 all these things. And then that made me realize is that why am I trying to change somebody's mind? If somebody
Mhm.
wants to be with me, that's their choice to make. I shouldn't have to convince somebody to be with me. I think,
Or my
yeah, yeah, go
the
ahead.
other favorite one I was going to say was, the one that, we've been split up now for 3 months. I've changed. Take me back.
Mm,
I've changed. It's been 3 months. No
yeah,
meaningful amount of change is going to happen in 3 months. I can guarantee it.
that's very true.
Especially if you're talking childhood trauma, if you're talking abandonment issues, if you're talking attachment issues, which are based on how how your caregivers treated you from birth. This is stuff which is hard coded in us and is going to take months, if not years, to overcome.
Yeah,
And being aware of it is all well and good. Being aware of it is the first step to overcoming it. But being
yeah,
aware of it and actually doing something about it or changing something about it is two very, very different things. And, I think sometimes we get so caught up in this idea of getting back with our ex that we're willing to just do so much just to try to get them back. And in reality, you should be taking a step back and kind of having a word with yourself and checking with yourself. What is the true motivation of this? Am I doing this for myself? Am I doing this to get my ex back? Because if you're doing it for yourself, whether you get your X backs or not, you win because you've bettered yourself. The situation that you're
yeah,
in, the way that you see the world, the way that you fit into the world. You
yeah,
know, um,
very
you
true.
can go forward and take this information that you've learned and this new sense of self, and you can take that into a relationship, if it's with your ex or not, or with somebody else, and you can have a much better relationship as a result. But if you are focusing so much on getting your ex back, which unfortunately a lot of people slip into, then you're setting yourself up for a binary thing. It's it's ones and zeros of you either get it back or you don't. And if you don't, it's going to crush you. And all you're
Yeah,
doing is just pushing that pain down the line.
that is very true. It's just this line of you should never lose yourself to gain somebody, and
Exactly.
you should you should be able to look at yourself and look at the things that you can do, because there's nobody's going to help you but yourself. We're all on this singular path of this journey, just going forward. And I think the problem that happens is that when you get so attached to somebody, rightfully so, you're in love, you have a partner, and you guys don't work out, there's a breakup. A lot of people tend to think that the path should be wide enough for that person to be able to come back, but it's not. Even when you're in a super happy committed relationship, even if you're married and have kids, you're still on your own path. You still have a lot of things that you need to work on yourself all the time, because that person, no matter how great they are, it's ultimately you should be able to help yourself. Because if
Hmm.
you just go on and rely on somebody else for your happiness every single time, then it's just not going to work out. You should be able to self internally make yourself happy, do these things for yourself, because then that will help so much in a relationship. That'll take off so much pressure on another person.
Well, not only that, but if you can make yourself happy, that makes you a happy person, which makes you far more attractive to be around as well.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to be around somebody who is able or who is unable to regulate how they feel. Nobody wants to be around somebody who is sad all the time. As much as we hate to say it and recognize it sometimes, that if you have that one friend who is known as being down in the dumps and sad all the time, there is only so much you could take before you take a step back and go, I need to do something else with somebody else for my own
yeah,
self-worth and for my
man.
own, for my own sense of self and my well-being.
Yeah, it's true.
So
Nobody wants to hang out with somebody who's always sad, who's always down. It's just
exactly.
nobody wants to be around that person, because they just look at everything so bleak and grim, when it's like, and it's like you have to kind of go through these things to learn what actual happiness is. Like it's not always about just being happy all the time. You're gonna go through some things that are going to be terrible, and you learn to adapt. You learn how to make yourself better from them, and that's how you should always see a breakup, is as a somebody told me this once. It's like, don't look at it as a opportunity close, but just look at it as another door opening for yourself, which is definitely the case, because you never know what's going to happen in the future, whether you guys get back together or not. That's undetermined, but it is exactly what
Yeah.
you said too. Don't try. I think the biggest thing, and going back to those people that are on YouTube trying to, like, it's a very, I see it as a very predatory type of thing that they do, is that they kind of, they easily get people that are really heightened in their emotions, and they tell them, well, hey, if
Well,
you
yeah,
just give me
it's when we're at our most vulnerable, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
they love working on that. They love reeling you in and telling you like, yeah, you can get your ex back. Take this quiz, and then you see if you're 90% compatible of getting them back.
yeah,
It's like yeah, these things, and it's easy for them to, if it didn't work out, which is like, oh well, hey, the other 7% said no, so you can't blame me. So it's very easy to fall in that trap because I did it. I went on those videos, just looking at different things, but please don't try to convince somebody the first week, the first month, the first like few months to get back, because it'll you have to end that relationship. You have to accept that it's over. And if
yep,
you ever do want to get back together, that a new relationship has to start. Like
hundred percent.
a brand new thing has to flourish from this. You have to both get on this path of growing and all these things. And the beauty in that is that if you take this chance to better yourself, to do all these things, and you get to a different level of loving yourself, but yet your ex is still in that same place that they never grew from, they never learned from or anything, you're going to be so much happier that it didn't work out because they had no self-growth. Meanwhile, you were out here just doing everything for yourself, loving yourself, learning about yourself, that at that point you don't ever want to settle. So definitely
Well,
take that time.
yeah, this is one of the things that we agree on quite strongly, and it's one of the things that one of the coaches online does actually kind of really enforce the whole use this as a time for self growth.
Right.
Because as I mentioned before, the pain that you have from breaking up, it is hugely motivational to you know really dig deep to the bottom of what the issues were with the relationship with yourself. Was it communication issues? Was it misunderstanding of love language? Do you have unresolved childhood trauma, which then presents itself in attachment issues? These are questions that you can really kind of ask yourself, because you, as a form of self-preservation, want to get to the bottom of these things so you don't go through this again. Nobody wants to go through a breakup and think, yeah, that was fun, let's do that again.
Mm.
And you know this is one of those things where, as the dumpee, we are far more motivated to do that work on ourselves, whereas the dumper isn't. They might sort of casually go, well, that didn't work out. Was that because of me, or was that because of them? And invariably, I'm not speaking for everybody here, because people do have various degrees of introspection.
Right.
Invariably, the dumper will have far less motivation to do that work, because in the act of dumping somebody else, they are putting their value as higher than the dumpee. They are saying that my value is worth more than yours, which is why I'm taking this chance, and I am saying to myself that I have a better chance of having something better out there with somebody else.
Right.
And by doing so, it's kind of the psychology and the mentality behind that is, I'm good, the faults are with you.
Right.
And yes, there's going to be varying degrees of this, and I'm painting with very, very broad, wide strokes at the moment. So, I don't want people to be lighting up the comment section saying that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because, you're kind of true. But,
Yeah.
As a dumpy, that motivation is just, it's like striking while the iron is hot. We
Yeah,
have the times where we feel sorry for ourselves.
for sure.
We have the times where we can't eat and can't sleep because your body is quite literally in fight or flight mode, because this emotional trauma to be a physical trauma. It doesn't differentiate in the brain.
Yeah.
We're not eating, we're not sleeping. Every sort of thought is invasive and just completely focused around this one person. And our brain is so wired to just try to get this thing back that we've lost, because, how dare they kind of, it's one of those things where it can be used for good. And at the beginning, that is very, very, very difficult, if not impossible to see. We're so consumed by our emotions. We're so consumed by what we're feeling, and what we're feeling is so raw and so, from a state of anxiety or a state of depression, even if it's mild depression, because like everything, it's a sliding scale. It's so difficult to try to find any sort of meaning and focus. And I think this is where a lot of people kind of end up in that sort of negative feedback loop, and then either blame themselves or blame the partner or lash out or become angry.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
it's a hugely traumatic event. I can honestly say, hand on heart, the breakup that I went through 3 months ago was worse than the 5 or 6 deaths in the past 10 years that I've had to endure, because when somebody dies, you
Mm.
get to close that book on them mentally. You get to say that mental goodbye. You get to close, you get that sort of closure. Whereas
Yeah.
with a breakup, that person is still out there. You mourn the loss of you going to have this person. You get to mourn the person, and yet they're out there living their life, whether it's a good one or a bad one, but they're still out there. And there's that kind of, your brain does whole psychological or metaphorical what if, all the time. What are they doing now? Who are they doing it with?
Yeah.
And it's just so consuming, and you just wear yourself out.
Yeah, you do. And I think that the biggest things is that what somebody on Reddit told me, which I will be always grateful to, is that you need to really stop checking social media, like social media stalking. I didn't think that was a problem until I realized how much I did it. I would wake up, check, 1 hour later, check again, 2 hours later, check again, just check throughout the whole day. I would check like at least 15 times a day. And
the thing is, that there is nothing that you will see on there that will make you feel better at all.
If only, if anything, it makes you feel even worse. And
because let's say best case scenario, they put a post up there, this breakup was a bad idea, I'm feeling really bad, I'm lost, etc. How's that going to make you feel? That's not going to make you feel good. That's going to make you feel bad, because this person that you care about is feeling upset. And unless you're a sadist or you're a narcissist, or unless this person has wronged you in such a way that you have every right to be angry at them, i.e. cheating, abuse, etc.
Right.
We don't want to see the people that we care about hurting. It doesn't just feel any better. It might scratch an itch. It might make you feel a bit satisfied on the surface. But if you really dig into it and really take a look at it, you really need to kind of question your own morals and your own kind of viewpoints if you're happy that somebody else is hurting on your behalf.
Yeah.
And, worst case scenario, they're going to post up a picture of loving life, or they put a picture up and they're looking really, really good, because you're always going to be physically attracted to them, especially if it's just after the breakup, because that connection hasn't been severed.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then the worst of the worst, they're with somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is, even if it's just a guy that or a girl that they're out with, and, they're just out with a group of friends and you don't recognize this one person, your brain just instantly just goes into like predator mode of what is going on here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who is she? Who are they? What's he doing with her? And it's, you spiral again and you go right back to square one.
Exactly.
And I was guilty of, I was guilty of the social media thing.
Me too.
And I think in today's day and age, because so much information is so easily accessible, it's not like it used to be, where you'd split up with somebody and then that was it. You might have to bump into them once if they were in the local area, or you might have mutual friends that would, you'd ask them to say, don't mention them because I'm in a sensitive place right now. Can you just don't bring anything up about them? And they'd be respectful, hopefully, if they're good friends. Yeah. But these days, you can literally just, in 3 or 4 clicks.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media has really made it really hard sometimes. It's like it gets so addicting because you just want to see everything. But I really have to emphasize, please don't check it. I'm telling you that I didn't think I had a problem. I was like, I can do this. I can get over her. I can get over things and still check. I like, nothing's gonna hurt me. And then the anxiety just built up even more. I was having my chest was hurting more after I was seeing things, more pictures, more all of these things. But then I took that step back and now I just check it once a day and I'm fine. Like it doesn't even bother me. And the thing is that as well is that if you see them posting pictures, if you see them posting this selfie and they look great and all these things, please remember that it is social media. People are only going to put their best selves on social media. They're not going to post like the likelihood of them posting like, oh, I miss blank so much. This hurts. I'm just broken up. This hurts so much. They're not going to do that. They're not going to want to put their depressed selves on where everybody can see, because that's not what social media is. Social media is to show the best side of yourself. So please remember that it may look like they're having a blast without you, but they could be really suffering as well, especially if it was a great relationship. Like my relationship was for 3 years as well. So I know that even if they post a picture, I know that they're struggling as well. I them, you get to know them so well that they're your best friend, and you're in a relationship for so long that even if they post these things, just remember that they're doing it to help themselves. But it doesn't mean that they're just like, right, got rid of them, I'm happy now. It's not like that. They're posting their best selves, and you should be using that time instead of looking at their social media and these things, use that time to just, find a new hobby, find, like, we'll do all these things that this, use the internet to your advantage. Don't use it to hurt yourself.
No, and if that urge is too great, if that urge is there all the time, then put your phone down, away from your phone, put your phone on charge, go for a walk for 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
Come away and then if you want to go check it, by all means. But it's one of these things that I always, we try to kick, we're a society now of instant gratification. And in this instant gratification, we have forgotten a lot about the process. And love is a process, falling in love is a process, and breaking up is a process.
Yeah.
Something that's done easy. It's
Yeah.
not like Eternal Sun of the Spotless Mind. So it would be great if we could remove some memories, but then at the same time, I honestly don't think I would, because I personally believe that we are a sum of our memories and our experiences. So why would you want to lose the bad ones? Because there are important lessons to be had in that. Yeah. But, going back to your previous thing, social media is a lie. It is the cherry pick moments that we pick and we spend. We've all seen it before with people out there taking 5 or 6 photos or 20 photos or 30 photos and then picking the best one and then going, I like this one, filter it, add whatever to it, and then it goes up.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well that I think we become very guilty of as well is everyone tries to be a secret agent. Everyone tries to be a mind reader. You see this one little breadcrumb when you're used to having this meal with this person.
Oh, yeah.
And this one little breadcrumb, and we latch onto that. What does that mean? What does it mean? You see it questions all the time. Why does my ex still have photos of us up on social media? Or why have they deleted all one? Or why have they only just deleted them now? And I was guilty of this myself. 2.5 months into a relationship, my ex still had photos of us up on one of her social media accounts, and then one day deleted them. And of course, me being me, trying to scratch that little itch, looked onto the social media account, and literally it was almost as soon as they did it, I kind of spotted it straight away. I was like, what does that mean? And then your brain just goes down the spiral. They've moved on. It means this, it means that. And the reality of it is it could just be something as simple as it hurts them to see those photos, so they've removed them, or they've made them private, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It just goes back to this whole thing of what other people think of you is entirely their business. It's so we become so wrapped up in our own emotions because we're hurting so much that we try to make everything about us. What does it mean? Have they moved on? How could they do this to me? They must have been talking to somebody whilst we were still there. And invariably, sometimes it's just a case of they just didn't want it anymore, and they wanted to make a statement that, they're trying to move on. Sometimes it's a form of self-affirmation to themselves. They're trying to tell themselves as much as anybody else, I'm trying to move on from this, And, as humans, we are messy people. We are messy creatures in terms of emotions, in terms of how we try to describe these emotions. And you couldn't read your partner's mind in the relationship. If you could, you wouldn't be broken up with them. So why are you trying to read their minds now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, 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 very true. It's just you need to take that power back. You need to take that power back for yourself. You can't let them control how you feel. Like it's same thing happened to me. I saw the pictures were gone. Anxiety went through the roof. I couldn't breathe. Yep. I was just thinking, oh my God, like, okay, well, what a million different possibilities. But that's the thing. Nothing will be confirmed to you. So why worry about something that you can't control? That's the thing that you have to kind of look at it as. You can't control it, so don't let it control you. Take that power back. They're obviously not trying to hurt you on purpose, unless they're a terrible person and that's what they're trying to do. then yeah, I completely block them if you need to. But they're not trying to hurt you. So stop hurting yourself from looking at these things. Just accept what's going on, and just definitely the no contact. I was not even up to maybe like 2 weeks ago, I was still in contact, and I realized that it really wasn't helping me. It really wasn't helping me because I was just thinking like, oh, maybe if I say this, or maybe what is she thinking if she's saying this, saying that. So it's like, just don't bother with it. Just leave it alone. Respect the the distance and the space of
give them the gift of your absence.
Yeah, exactly.
This person has walked away from you.
Yeah, exactly. It is
And
that
the other
just
thing as well, yeah, the other thing as well is, I mean, if you are if you are trying to get your ex back, and if you are, all props to you. I'll be honest with you, I'm in that same camp. There is still a large part of me that desperately wants to start something fresh with my partner once I've got myself to a position where I know that I can offer something different. I
mhm,
don't want to offer the same old stuff that was before, because that didn't work, because she wasn't fulfilled, wasn't happy, which is why she left. If you are trying to get your ex back, the best way to do that is with no contact, because by
mhm,
going into no contact, you are giving them the gift of the breakup. They wanted this breakup. They might have been thinking of it for weeks, for months beforehand. And whilst we are frustrated because they could have been using that energy to communicate their needs to us and communicate the desire to break up with us, and we would have done something about it. Would you really? Um,
mhm.
there is this kind of, by giving them the breakup, by allowing them to miss you, they get to sit with the reality of the breakup. It's been completely conceptual in their mind up until
Yeah,
now. And invariably, we have these expectations of how things are going to go. And when these things don't go how we expect them to, that's when we start thinking, did I make the right choice? But if you don't allow the person to miss you, they're never going to have this introspection. They're never going to have this kind of thought process, because if you're always there, then they know they've got you. So why would you want something you can have easily?
yeah, it's true. And then also it's like it's just uh, um it's that whole thing of if you're just there, then you may end up getting really hurt by it, because you if you're still in your mindset of like, I need to get them back, I want to get them back, and meanwhile they're actually trying to move on, then
Mhm.
that's going to clash. You're going to think that everything that that person may be saying may mean something, and then you're going to follow these breadcrumbs. They're going to lead to nothing, and then you're going to end up getting hurt. If you're only talking to them because you're trying to get them back, not just trying to give them space and healing, then you're really in it for the wrong reasons.
Because it's
Especially
actually
if
being manipulative as well. You're being
yeah,
manipulative by doing that,
yeah,
because your motives aren't true. It's the same with the people that try to be friends. Let's be friends.
yeah,
And
that's
I will
exactly
I'll
what I was
say
going
from
to
the
say.
get
Yeah,
go, yeah, do not be friends with your ex if you want to get them back. Sometimes people can't be friends with their ex anyway, because once you've had that communication, or once you've had that connection with somebody, on a romantic level, it is not very easy to, if at all, to separate that from somebody. And by being that person's friend, you're going to have to sit there and be comfortable and cool with the fact that they might be dating somebody else or moving on to somebody else.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
not only that, but it kind of devalues the feelings and the connections that you had in the relationship as well. If you're okay with being in the friend zone, that's not to say that you can't be friends with your ex down the line once you've both done some serious growth, and that desire to be with them isn't there anymore. But that takes a long time to get over that connection.
yeah,
But you see it all too often where people think, "Oh, I'm going to lose this person from my life forever. Everything's going to be different. I can't go on without this person. Let's just be friends." And then, it never works. You start off
yeah.
messaging
It's
somebody once a week, or messaging once a day, and then it just kind of drains off. And it makes it almost easier for the dumper as well, because they know that they don't have to rip this band-aid off. They can just do it really slowly, and they just kind of ease out of your life. And
mhm,
it
yeah.
just leaves you just feeling even more devalued then as well, because you're left thinking to yourself that you couldn't even maintain a relationship with a friendship with this person who once meant so much to you. And it kind of leaves you beating yourself up even further.
Yeah, I think like the biggest, the hardest thing, the hardest pill to swallow would be that you have to be willing. You really you have to get it into the mindset that you have to be willing to let somebody go and know that they're not going to come back. That is
Mhm.
one of the hardest things, and you have to get yourself to that point. Just think about it in the way that they're doing it. They broke up with you. They are willing, or they did just not throw away the relationship, but just end it. If they're
Mhm.
willing to end the relationship, then you should be willing to accept it and accept the fact that they're not going to come back. They may never come back. And that's as far as it'll go. You have
Yeah.
to get yourself into that mindset of just letting that person go. If they come back, then they come back. Great. But if they don't, accept the fact that they won't come back, and that'll help you so much more down the line, because if they're willing to break up with you, and think, well, this can't work out anymore. All these plans that you guys had for the future, right? Marriage, children, moving in to get all these things. If they're willing to say, okay, well, I really did want all of that, but I can't see it with this person anymore, then you should be having that same mindset as well. Because like as great as your ex is, they're not the center of everything. You know, they you should be willing to let people go that won't help you in your growth down the line.
Right. And, for whatever reason, your ex has left you as well. For me, my ex left me at one of the darkest periods in my life. And, I understand her reasonings behind it. I know exactly why. It's one of the reasons why, despite everything, despite the breakup, despite how the breakup was literally just, it was like a wall came down and was just almost impressive by how kind of determined and just no contact straight away. The breakup were by text. So had I not driven up to see her, it would have been the last person. Spent months getting to the point of being hurting to the point of, look, I need to do this, and then just boom, the gates came down, and that was it. The fortress was, fortified, and that was it. And it was impressive, but at the same time, looking back on it from a position now where I'm less emotionally invested, because at the beginning it was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. I don't know, how could they do this? Do I mean so little to them? Did the relationship mean so little? Looking back on it from the perspective now, they did the best thing they could because it was the best thing for them, because they didn't want to hurt so much. But also, what other way could they have done it, or could she have done it to me to make it any easier?
Yeah.
Could they have done let's be friends, which would have been completely bogus anyway, because nobody wants to be friends with somebody they've just broken up with. Softly do it in person. I think sometimes we get so caught up on the details of the breakup, and also trying to seek closure as well, which is a very, very messy thing, because I believe that true closure only ever really comes from within. But we try to have this, we have so many expectations of the breakup that we just, when it doesn't go that way, we feel cheated. And, I think it's easy to forget sometimes that the person who is doing the breaking up is going through as much of a rough time as well. Because if you'd asked me this question 3 months ago, I would have given you a very different answer. But in hindsight, if given the choice of being the dumper or the dumpy, I take the dumpy every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy breaking up with somebody that you truly do care about. And I think dumpers get a lot of flack. They do get a lot of hate, especially on the subreddit. But I mean, it's definitely not easy to do. But yeah, definitely for the dumpies, it's used just think of it as a blessing in disguise. Think of the brand new door that just opened wide for you to learn so much about yourself, that you're just going to be so much happier with yourself being single than being in bad company, that you're just going to be extremely happy with yourself, and you're just going to love your life. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like you making yourself happy. Like I promise you, there's nothing. It's an uphill battle. I struggle with it every day, but I'm in a whole different mindset now because I've accepted things. The moment that you accept things, like it's up and down. It's a roller coaster of emotions every single time. You're gonna be angry, you're gonna be bitter, you're gonna be sad, you're gonna be depressed, you're gonna go through all these motions. But just keep at it every day. You tell yourself that this is part of your healing. You take it day by day, and you're gonna feel so much better. There's no linear time for it. A lot of people want to say, like, oh, it's been 3 months, why am I not happy yet? Or it's been 5 months, or sometimes it's been years and I'm still thinking about this. Is that sometimes you just have to dig deeper. I think that's just what it is.
And I think the other important thing that you have to remember as well is, in a breakup, we have such a we have such a sense of a loss of power, that's when we kind of spiral into anxiety and depression, because we're trying to control things we have no control over. there is only one thing that you can control, and that is your response to the breakup and how you treat that breakup. You know, you can't control your ex, you can't control the relationship, you can't control them moving forward, you can't control the decisions of whether they're going to come back or not. All you can control is how you respond and how you use your energy and how you use your time. And that will speak volumes about you as a person. You know, there are so many things that we try to control in our everyday life that we don't have the capacity to, and we just get so burnt out on it. Focus on what you can control and let everything else come to you and work itself out, you know?
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
You know, I'm going to leave it on this one little piece that I think is going to be important to people, whether or not you're trying to get your ex back. More so if you are, but if, for example, 5 or 6 months down the line, your ex is reminiscing and thinking back and decides, you know what, I'm going to check in and see how they're doing. What kind of person do you want to present to your ex? Are you going to be the same person that they split up with and has shown no growth whatsoever and has just done nothing with the kind of time that they've had and is still in the same kind of rut or negative feedback cycle or just sleeping around or monkey branching or doing whatever? Or are you going to offer them something new and something different? Because I can guarantee you, as the person who's been the dumper and the dumpee, if you offer something different and something new and something fresh, you've got far more likelihood of reattracting somebody that you once had a connection with than you will by just offering the same old stuff. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that this is going to apply to everybody. You might have an ex who dumped you because they wanted a monkey branch under somebody else and had grass is greener syndrome, which unfortunately is becoming more and more common these days. But there is always room for growth, you know, and for those that have no hope and for those that think it's, you know, there's no possible way until both of you are dead or one of you is dead, preferably if it's just one of you is dead, because if both of you are dead, then it's kind of messed up anyway, but there's always chance. And, you know, but hope is a double-edged sword. Hope will hold you back. Hope will keep you going when all is lost, and it will make you fight the fight unwinnable. And, you know, it is a wonderful thing, but also a very, very devastating thing at the same time. So just be cautious and be careful what you're doing with that energy and control what you can control, which is yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say too as well is if you're going through depression, if you're going through these things, because this is something that I spoke to with, I made a post one day and somebody told me this, because I was saying about a lot of self-love. If you're going through this, please, you know, take this moment for yourself and heal and all these things. And if you're going through something, just try to resolve these things. Seek help if you need to. You know, it's okay to say, yeah, I can't deal with this alone and you need help. It doesn't mean that you're weaker because of it. It doesn't mean that they're going to fix your problems for you, but you sometimes you just take these necessary steps to help. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love because you're depressed and you feel like you can't have a healthy relationship. Um, it, it may mean that you may not be ready for one at this moment because you have a lot of things that you need to look at first. It doesn't mean that you can't be in a healthy relationship. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be in a healthy relationship. It's just that there's so many things going on that you don't want to bring to the table when you're in a relationship, because that person may not be able to handle it and may walk out on you, which will not help you in return. Some people will be able to stay, and that's the risk. I mean, love is a big risk as well, as much as it is amazing. But you know, you get into these things, and if you have all these unresolved traumas, if you're going through a lot of things and you just don't ever talk about them and you don't ever try to work them out or just try your best, you know, it doesn't mean that you're just magically going to be like, oh, I'm not depressed anymore. You know, these depression never goes away. It comes and goes and all these things. So it doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be loved. You do deserve to be loved, but there's just a lot of things that you need to work out first. And doesn't mean that you can't be in a healthy relationship, because you can. It's just that there's depression is just a very serious, a very, very, very serious thing. But it doesn't mean that somebody with all these issues, quote unquote, that they may have, all these mental health issues, it doesn't mean that they can't be in a healthy relationship.
No, and I think the other important thing to remember as well is it's not your partner's job to fix you. and it's not your job to fix your partner either, you know.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing that a lot of us kind of slip into, because we generally attract the kind of mindset that we're in.
Yeah.
You know, I had struggles with depression. You know, I had family members die. You know, the childhood trauma unresolved childhood trauma got brought back up to the surface because of issues. And, you know, when you are hurting, you bleed all over the people that are closest to you. And the people that want to be closest to you are the ones that invariably get hurt the most. And one of the things that I do feel an incredible amount of guilt towards, even though I know that we're supposed to be practicing self-love and all this kind of stuff, is that I wasn't an abusive person towards my partner in the slightest.
Hmm.
If anything, I was, you know, she told me many times that I was one of the most understanding, because, you know, she was a very sensitive person, and I was able to always be there for her and support her.
Right.
But the first part of the relationship, where I wasn't burdened by the issues because I was dealing with them in the background and, you know, all this kind of stuff, or thought they were fine because the lids were on the boxes, was fantastic, firing on all cylinders, had a great time. You know, she'd go home to her mother and tell me he's the one I've been waiting for, etc., etc. Once the
Right.
issues started to crop up, because I wasn't talking about them, because I wasn't communicating the issues, that's when you get into the mindset of, I need to deal with this by myself.
Yeah.
No person is strong enough to deal with all of the issues that they have by themselves. And I can guarantee that people in the world that we think are the strongest are the people that deal with stuff, you know, in a healthy or a constructive way.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is, strength is an illusion. You know, is a person who never talks about their emotions and carries on blindlessly a strong person? No. They're, you know, take for example a sword. If you have a sword and the metal is strong, that sword will shatter because it's, you know, it's brittle.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to you. You have to be able to have some flexibility. You have to be able to, you know, have a bit of malleability and to take the blows, but also recognize that you're not doing this by yourself. If you're in a partnership with somebody else, that person is in your corner. They're your team. Turn to that person, talk to that person. I promise you, if you take one day a month out of the year, one day out of the month, and just sit down with your partner, and even if it's a case of having stuff written down, so you've got black and white on paper, stuff that you can refer to back, because one of the things I had issues with is my partner would communicate needs to me, and because I was dealing with so much stuff in my head, it wouldn't sink in, and then I'd be struggling to remember what they were saying, and I didn't want to go and ask them what they'd brought up, because I'd felt like I'd be demeaning them and cheapening them, and, you know, showing that I'm not caring. And then I'd latch onto one thing and I'd try to fix that if it was something that indeed needed fixing, or addressing, I should say. And then the real crux of the issue would never get resolved. So then she'd end up not communicating her issues because, you know, they weren't being addressed. So therefore, you know, why would somebody want to talk about things that aren't going to get resolved? Talk about things. Therapy is fantastic for talking, and our brain is wired in a way that just by talking things out, we instantly feel better about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty. That's why communication is such a key element in a healthy relationship. The better you are at talking about your feelings, no matter how logical you are, and that's something that I'm learning now, which that makes me very grateful for the breakup, because I would have never been able to tackle it if I was still in a happy relationship, funnily enough. But being able to speak about these things, it does so much better. You're and it'll be even better when you find that person that's willing to listen, and that's willing to do that give and take. When you find that person that is saying, okay, I understand that you have all these things going on. Let's have, like you said, a day where we just talk about it and we help each other out and we don't fight about it. Let's just hear each other out. If you find that person, then that person will be there for you. That person won't walk away. That person won't say I can't deal with it. You know, that you will find that one person that will be willing to listen, and you also listen as well, and just have that give and take. If that person walked away from you, if that person broke up with you because they couldn't handle all these things, then it's not necessarily their fault. It was probably too much to handle, and it means that you just need to find different avenues to be able to speak about these things to better help yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said before, we are the architects of our own happiness. we are responsible for our happiness, and that happiness should never ever fall into the hands of somebody else. And we see it way too often, even just in the way of how romance has been romanticized.
Yeah.
We talk about other people like, this is my other half, or this is my better half, or this person is the love of my life or my world, and all this kind of stuff. And on the surface, it's very romantic and it sounds very nice, but there is this insidiousness about that, where it's almost like, I am less if I am not with this person. This person completes me. Without this person, I am not me. And that is the
Yeah.
kind of mentality and the kind of thinking that we really need to get away from, because I don't know if any of the people listening to this will be familiar with Daniel Sloss, but he has two specials which are on Netflix, and he's a Scottish comedian. And
Okay.
there's one special called Jigsaw. It's hilarious, also very poignant. I highly recommend it to anybody. And it basically puts across the idea that we are our own jigsaws.
Mm.
But we don't have the box with the picture on the front. So we're just kind of trying to piece it together in any way that we can. And whenever you do a piece, or whenever you do jigsaw, you find the corner pieces first. And these corner pieces will be family, friends, hobbies, and relationships or whatever.
Right.
And then you start working on the sides, and these are the bits that kind of, you start working the frame, working around the borders and trying to build a more complete picture.
Yep.
And then, you try to find the centerpiece, and the centerpiece is what completes us. And that will be different things for different people. And all too often we're guilty of trying to force something or someone into our jigsaw puzzle that isn't the center that's meant to be there. And we're taking all these other pieces out, just trying to make this person fit. And the reality of it is, sometimes we do become so caught up in a relationship that we kind of lose ourselves in the relationship, because we're trying desperately so hard to make it work. And
Yeah.
going back to your point of happiness and stuff like that, self-love is so important. And this is coming from a guy who didn't even know what self-love was until 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I'm 37 years old. I've been through it. I have seen many things. I've suffered all kinds of abuse except for sexual. And I didn't know what self-love was until 6 months ago. And I've been learning it since. And there's a part in the special, this jigsaw special, that he brings up the thing of, you need to be able to love yourself, because if you love yourself only 20%, somebody will come along and offer you 25%, and they're like, wow, this is amazing, this person's the best thing ever. It's literally less than half.
Yeah.
You have to be able to love yourself, because if you can't love yourself, how can you expect anyone else to?
Yeah. 100%. And I think a lot of people may have this thing of like saying, but I already do love myself, but I can't get anybody and all these things. It's like, sure, you may feel, you may have these things about yourself, but it doesn't mean that it's over. It's never really over. Your self-growth doesn't ever really stop. You can't really get to a place where you're like, well, I love myself, why can't I find somebody now? It's like, it's not, it's a never ending thing, and it's always going to be up and down. It doesn't necessarily mean that that you're insecure and that you still need to work on so many things. But yeah, there's a lot of things that may need to still be worked on, and it doesn't mean that, oh, okay, well, now you're done. It's never really done. Like that's the biggest thing, is that to learn is that it's a never ending thing, but you just learn to adapt to it better, and you learn to it gets easier with time. That's just what it is. And the biggest thing is just starting. It's just the biggest thing is acknowledging that there's stuff there, and that you take it a day at a time.
Well, not only that, but if you do put the time in yourself, and I'm speaking from a guy's perspective here, because unfortunately that's the only perspective I do have, but any guy out there who's doing the work on themselves and is able to be emotionally in tune with themselves and emotionally connected, and is able to understand their partner and stuff like that, I can guarantee you will be light years ahead of 80% of guys out there, because this inability that we have to be able to express ourselves on an emotional level, to be able to connect on an emotional level, is so widespread amongst guys that it is, it's almost like a hidden pandemic. And there's a reason why, cis white males, from the age of 25 to 35 has the highest suicide rates in the world. There is okay, I'll say in the world, but certainly in the UK and in the US. I don't want to be making any broad sweeping statements with that.
Right.
There's a reason why adolescent males especially are struggling, because we don't know how to connect, we don't know how to communicate, and we don't know how to express ourselves. And it's not your fault.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies growing up, Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. That was the only thing I ever wanted to hear as a kid growing up. It's the only thing I want to hear as an adult now. It is not your fault.
Yeah.
But if you're aware of the situation and you're aware of the circumstances, you have the power to do something about it now. If you suffer trauma as a child, my heart goes out to you. I sympathize with you. I connect with you. I understand you. You are not that child anymore. You have power, you have capacity, you have ability to do something about that. So if you're suffering a breakup at the moment and it is painful, we're all going through it ourselves, which is why we're here. Use that pain.
Yeah. Use it to just kind of turn things around for yourself. So I'm just gonna give I'll give a closing statement here in conclusion, and then you can follow up.
Sure.
It's just guys, I think it's just the biggest thing. I think this is more of a episode for the men, but it's just like, definitely just guys, just speak, like use that communication, talk about your feelings. I know society, these things happen. It's like you can't talk about, men don't talk about their feelings and all these things, and then we bottle it up, and that's why we die so young. And you just the mental health aspect, the benefits from being able to just speak and communicate will not only help you with future relationships, but it'll just help you so much. Just be able to accept that you may need help, talk about whatever it is that you're going through. Don't be afraid. If you're afraid to speak up because you're gonna be, because you feel embarrassed that somebody's gonna make fun of you, they're not your friend. You don't need them in your life. If you're afraid that somebody's gonna make fun of you because you want to speak about your emotions and your feelings, we all have them. Don't shy away from them. Just be able to speak about them. Be able to accept that you may need help, and just have that for yourself, because it's very, very important that your mental health is on check just as much as your physical health, because they both coincide so much. Just please be able to speak about what's going on, and just be able to find different outlets for it. Do it in a healthy way. Don't try to self medicate with different things, because I think we have all been there. I've been there where I don't want to speak about things, so I'll have a drink instead. I'll just mask it with things that don't really help. They just bury it until it all comes up one day, and then nobody knows why you started freaking out for no reason. So just please be able to speak about it. That's what I want to say. I think this episode is more for like male depression. I think it's very important to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And in finishing up as well, use the resources that you have available. I know we kind of beat up on social media earlier. Reddit does fall under the kind of banner of social media, but it's also a good place to reach out to people who are going through something similar as well. One of the comforts that I took from some of the subreddits, such as, No Contact or Breakups or anything like that, is you kind of get a very good look very early on that you are not alone in this. There are people who are going through similar situations who will be more sympathetic than, some of your friends. And, there are plenty of people out there who are willing to offer help. I'm on there myself. My inbox is always open. My username is Phoenix V8, PHOENIX, the letter V, the number 8. And I've got a history of going through, and just basically anybody who wants some help or advice, or just a soundboard, or somebody to, complain to, or just, vent their frustrations to, use that. Because the more you try to keep things inside, the more damaging it is. It becomes toxic. It becomes a poison. And there are far too few resources out there for people, especially guys at the moment. The pandemic isn't making things easier because it's difficult to go out. I speak to a therapist once a week via Zoom. And it
Hmm.
works for me because the good thing about speaking with a therapist is you can be completely unabashed. They're unbiased. They don't have a horse in the race. You can tell them whatever you want, and provided it doesn't, break any laws, or you're not sort of talking of self-harming and stuff like that, you can talk about whatever you want, and it goes nowhere beyond that
Yeah.
kind of medium. So you can tell whatever's going through your head. And unfortunately, sometimes if you speak with friends, you have to be careful with what you say, because it will affect their opinion and their views of you as much as they might not want it to, as much as they try not to. With a
Yeah.
therapist, that doesn't happen because it is a confidential relationship. It is a professional relationship, and you can talk about what you want. Now, that's not to say that therapy is a magic silver bullet that is going to cure everything. It's like
Right.
many things. It's like every relationship, be it professional, be it business, be it personal, be it romantic. You get exactly out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
So being vulnerable, being emotionally available, being just putting yourself out there and talking about things, I can guarantee you that you will be in a much better position than if you try to keep everything inside. Because as somebody who tried to keep everything inside for too many years, I lost the best thing that happened in my life so far.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was a direct result of my inability to express how I was feeling. Had I put in 5% or 10% of what I know now and how to communicate, even though I don't know how to do it very well, the sheer fact that I'm able to at least put the effort in means so much to people, rather than I don't want to talk about it, or it's nothing, or I don't, any other kind of statement that we do as a broad sweeping thing just to try to tell people to leave us alone. Because I can
Yeah.
guarantee you, if you push people away enough and tell them you want to be left alone, you'll be left alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. I think the big, the magic words are, I don't want to talk about it. That
Yeah.
is a classic line that just does not do anybody good. And if you feel embarrassed, that's why the subreddit is there, right? You can anonymously message me. You can anonymously message Chris. You can put a post out there. People will respond to it. If you feel like you don't want to put your name or anything out there, you don't necessarily have to. That's the beauty of the internet now. That's the beauty of social media now, is that you can speak about these things, and just as long as you're consistent and you stay on it, right? You just stay on your own path. You just take it day by day. You don't even have to put your name out there anymore. No, like, if you feel too embarrassed, like that's the beauty of it now, is that join those subreddits that can help. Get that help that you need. um it may give you the tools that you need. You never know until you try. That's the important thing here.
Yeah. Just talk about it.
Yeah.
And there will be people that will be dismissive of therapy and saying therapy doesn't work, all this kind of stuff. Therapy is one part of a very large toolbox that we can spend our lives pulling together. Mindfulness, self-love, meditation. I was so dismissive of meditation until I started trying it recently, and
Oh yeah, me too.
being so much more at peace. Just even if it just takes the edge off that anxiety might still be there, but it's not as reactive anymore, and you don't feel as on edge anymore. you know, um, Going for a walk, getting out in nature, getting out in some sunshine. With the pandemic at the moment, with the lockdown, it was so difficult for us to do it until recently. But just being out for 15 minutes, walk around the house with your shoes off and socks off, just so you get to feel something.
Yeah.
There are so many little things that we can do, and it all adds up. Go buy some new bed linen. I just stupidly, I'd say stupidly, but I just dropped nearly $300 on new bed linen yesterday, because I want to be able to spend the time that I'm in bed being as comfortable as possible, because it
Yeah.
is just practice self-love. Have that
Yeah.
bath. Go for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just look out for yourself, because at the end of the day, you are the only person that you have complete responsibility for.
Yeah, for sure. Like find new hobbies as well. I'm picking up new hobbies that I forgot about. Even before I was in a relationship. I was like, okay, well, now that I have more free time, I can look at all these things that I probably missed. And now I'm having a great time re rekindling with all these things that I thought I had forgotten about. So yeah, definitely take that time for yourself, and just it'll be okay. You take it a day at a time, and just be able to speak yourself, and just, just it'll be okay. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, a lot of people will be hurting right now, especially if the breakup is fresh. Just remember, you're okay before they came into your life, and you'll be okay afterwards. Just look out for yourself. You know, listen to what you need. Listen to what yourself is telling you. It's difficult to do. It's something that not many people have as a skill. But the more you listen, the more in tune you become with what you need, the more you can, access that, and the more that you can do something about that. Spend time on self growth. Spend time getting new hobbies, becoming a better person. If you're motivated by, revenge, or, wanting to one up the person, living well is the best revenge. But at the same time, I highly recommend that you find a better outlet. Just live well for yourself, because you are the one person that no matter how much time you invest in yourself, it is never wasted time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very well said. And I think you get to the point where you don't, once you get to that point where you don't wish any ill towards your ex, I think that's like the best thing there. You get to the point where you wish him the best, and then you just focus on yourself and what matters to you. So definitely the most important thing is self-care. But yeah, that's it for this episode. I think we spoke about so many great things. I I love the dialogue. I think it's very important to talk about the mental health aspect of dating. I think it's not talked about as much. I don't really see it in the subreddit, so I'm glad it was covered. But I'm very happy that we got a great guest. I spoke about so many great things. I would love to have you back to speak about different maybe down the line, see how you feel on all these things. But it was great to yeah, it was great to get a different perspective. So I hope everybody enjoys. This is many thoughts. If you I usually, I mean, I don't do that whole thing, like, comment, subscribe, but if you want to give me any feedback, go ahead. This isn't about me. This is about you guys. I want it to be about you guys. I want it to be about self-motivation, self-care, healing, all these things. So this one's for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and you guys have yourself a great day and night wherever you are. Goodbye.